You're listening to Faith, Relationship, and Community Podcast, where we talk about all things faith, relationship, and community. My name is Noah. I'm the lead pastor of Morningside Lutheran Church. Today, we are joined by Sara Johnson with Hope Street, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to develop strong communities. So, talk a little bit about Hope Street, maybe how it began, and I've been curious, why are you involved in this, and what got you interested in this line? That could be a big question.
Well, actually, when Hope Street was getting started, I was asked to be part of a committee. It's called the Street Project, and that came out of a lot of different meetings that they had downtown. Matt Oman from SHIP, he was, kind of a front runner and trying to get this committee going. For 5 years, they had always talked about a detox center.
Okay.
And so we had a couple of people who were on the committee I had worked with previously, and they asked if we wanted to be a part of that, and we did. And so we went and talked about it, and we really thought about, let's do it a little bit differently instead of having the detox center, because we have two great hospitals in Sioux City.
Sure.
They can do all of those things.
Yeah.
A detox center at that time, so this is 6 years ago, would have been $10 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so for us, it was really you know what, they can detox at the hospital, but they need to have a place to go. Otherwise, they're just going to go right back to the lifestyle they were leading because they didn't have any other options.
And you see that now,
correct.
From time and time again.
For sure.
So it's kind of a natural habit and behavior.
It is completely. And so there are people who are waiting in line to come to Hope Street.
Yeah.
And so we just saw a need that the community needed to do something a little bit different. Frank Lemire, he's no longer with us, but he was a huge advocate for the homeless community. And then there were a couple of people in our community who are leaders, Regina Roth, and she brought in a few people that she knew would have a heart for the homeless as well. So Dave Ferris and his wife, Sue, Matt Oman, of course, Frank, and we just really started brainstorming. Regina graciously gave us funding to really start. And I did some training and kind of went and viewed other sober living homes, and we sort of decided how we were going to operate. And, it took about 6 months to get it put together, maybe longer. But through that whole process, I'll tell you, Morningside Lutheran was part of that.
Yeah.
And so they've been a huge support.
That's really cool.
It is really cool.
I appreciate you sharing all those names because it's just a reminder, this is never a one-person show.
Oh, for sure not.
And all of the people involved, even from the beginning, the brainstorming, even the vision of what do we want to do here and what is the need, to unpack that a lot more.
Well, for Regina, she read an article in a paper that a person froze to death. Wow. And she was like, we shouldn't be having this in a community that we have a lot of resources, but we need some different options.
Yeah.
And so she just really had a heart for it. And she was able to join all the right people, and it came together. And we were not sure if it was going to be a success. And so, it was a huge leap of faith, especially for individuals that were financially funding it. So Hope Street is completely funded by donations. Yeah. And so that first year, we wanted to have one successful person. Okay. And we had multiple.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. Tell me about that first year. So you opened, how many beds did you have at first?
At that time, we had 10 beds.
Okay.
And, we had one person start. His name was Chris. He was our first guest, and he slept for, I am not even kidding, for a whole month.
Oh, really?
He was so exhausted. Yeah. The toll that homelessness takes, drug addiction takes on a person's body. But I only took one person per week. Okay. Until I kind of got to about 8, and then, all right, I can get the last 2.
But then they would stay. So one person 1 week, and then the next week you'd add a second, and then a third. And okay.
And so I wasn't, I wanted to give myself an opportunity to have a learning curve.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Hey, that's wise.
And so, but the homeless community definitely has a network, and it was word of mouth. And pretty soon I had people coming to the front door, asking to apply, wanted to live there, wanted an opportunity. And, we opened in the summertime in June of 19. And when you open in the summertime, a lot of people think, well, if they're struggling with alcohol or drugs, it's not really that painful to be out, in the warmth versus being the winter,
rigid Iowa winters. Yep.
Sure. And so that wasn't really the case. So the people who were coming to apply, it didn't matter about the weather. It wasn't about those things they were looking for. They were sick ready. Of being sick, and they were ready to do something a little bit different. So
that's interesting to bring. Yeah, because I think that is a more common thought is you probably see some of those places. And I think the same with a gospel mission where they're probably lighter in the summer and then in the winter, everybody comes in, but it's really about, and you probably see more transformation, the men that they want to get better. They're done.
Absolutely.
And still having a hard journey with even wanting to be done and getting back into that.
I think for us, it really was looking, the application process really is asking those questions. Are you willing to do these expectations? And I'm very forward and honest about, what the expectations are going to be. And I do have people who will say, you know what, I'm not prepared to do that right now, or I'm not interested in that. But then I have other people who say, I am going to have to do that. Otherwise, I am going to die on the street, or I am going to end up in prison for life. And
they've seen it in a lot of their friends. I've talked to some of the men, and by the way, it's funny whenever I'm there. I was there last week. They call you the boss lady, and they know you're tough, but you love them, and they know that too. But it's good. I think a lot of that is it because they talk about kind of the rules in place, and that I think they have a desire to want to meet those guidelines. But I think they can be hard. Accurate. The structure could be hard.
It is hard. But I think it's also exactly what they're looking for. They're just not quite ready to accept that. Whether it was their lifestyle after they moved out, whether it was in, while they lived in the home and they didn't receive that kind of support. They see that it's valuable, but it feels really uncomfortable. And so you kind of want to rail against the man, right? And so, but when you develop relationships with those individuals, they really look at, this is a relationship of a person who wants to help support me, help me get through some of those things that I don't want to do. Yeah.
Have you had some hard relationships as far as just men that you've seen recurring that obviously you're rooting for all of them, but
absolutely
you just see them go? And
I would say probably the first year was a devastation for me. The second year it was still really challenging because you never want to do that. And of course what people don't understand is I might ask them to leave, and I know by asking them to leave what consequences there may be for them, whether they go to jail, they get, a revocation and they have to go back to prison, or they're not going to be able to see their kids.
Right.
I've really had to take a different look, a different stance at it, as it wasn't my responsibility. I give them the opportunity. And it's still hard. It's still hard and challenging. But then I have to say, you know what? It just wasn't their time. They didn't have enough investment yet.
Right.
And that's why I believe in grace. And so when a person is asked to leave, in 2 weeks from that day, they can reapply and get put back on the waiting list for Hope Street.
I've seen your waiting list before.
Yeah.
your stack of paper. You told me one time, because a lot of the men, they don't have an address. But you might know where they live, or people know where they're staying, and so you get in your car, and I mean, is that the process still of when you're doing an intake or finding whoever's next on that list?
It absolutely is. Yeah. So I didn't know this the first few months, but now it's a question. Oh, you don't have an address, you don't have a phone number. Okay, so who are your relatives? Where do you stay? Oh, do you stay at Cook Park? Are you downtown? Or who can I connect with? And so actually, like right now, I'm looking for an individual. I connected with the warming shelter. I have a good relationship with a few people down there.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, we're going to put the word out and we'll let them know. And I called their emergency contact and they're like, well, we're going to try to find him because he wants a bed. I'm like, okay. And so I wait a few days, to see if that's going to happen. And I think it's really important for me to put in the legwork because they did. It takes a lot of courage to come and say, you know what, I need help. I need support. I'm really struggling and I want something different. And so because they took those steps to whether it's to call me or to show up at the door, then I'm going to do the same for them. Yeah.
There's a lot of humility in that too. And back to some of the reoccurring, I met a gentleman too, that really nice guy, but I think he had been there before. And even you were like, I don't know where he's gone. He's gone for a year, but he was in prison and just got out more recently and kind of back at it. And it has that same mentality of just keeping at it.
And I think part of it is too when they develop that relationship and they understand, yep, I know I was mad when you asked me to leave before, but I know that it came from a good place. They have time to contemplate about what really happened and what their role was. The
reality of
it completely
situation.
is.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that, but this time they're more open to, you know what, I probably do need therapy, or I really could use some substance abuse treatment, or I need to work the 12 steps and I didn't put the effort in. And so it allows them to take that responsibility back.
Right. One thing I appreciate a lot of things about our, just being able to support you guys and be involved in that. One thing I've really personally appreciated is, and I believe you still do this, you don't necessarily hold Bible studies there or anything in case the men have to leave. You don't want to take them away from maybe what they can be part of. And so that's been kind of a neat, I think, and a neat approach of being able to engage with some of the guys on our end of those who might be looking towards faith and growing and developing in faith.
So I have a little bit different take on it. So I don't have any services provided, whether it's a Bible study or therapy or, any of those things, because part of my responsibility is getting them connected to their community. Yeah. These are individuals who have not felt included. They haven't felt loved. They've just had a negative experience, usually from their own behavior. But when they decide, you know what, I want to go to church or I want to reconnect, I do want to find out a couple more things about, this Bible study. I want them to go out, meet other people, positive people who they can see, you know what, just because they have a home or they have this or that, they still struggle with the exact same things you do. And there's value in having a relationship with different people and creating the life that you want. And so if I kept that all to Hope Street and then they walk out the door, they did not create a support system for themselves.
Sure. And that's a huge part of this. I mean, especially those who are from around here or not from around here. I mean, it's a new support system that they need to engage with.
It completely is. And so one of the pieces, we're very intentionally placed kind of in the Midtown area. Yeah. And I know that that's not always a popular choice, but for us, when these men are going to leave Hope Street, they're more than likely going to continue in that neighborhood. They're going to find, that's an apartment that they can afford. Right. They're familiar with the surroundings. And so it's really looking at what are the positive pieces of this neighborhood. Right. And we're on a bus route. We are close to, Department of Human Services, Department of Corrections, the, court system. Yeah. And, for them, when they have a lot of requirements, that's really challenging if you have no transportation, no support. Yep. And so if they can get to all of these appointments, mental health, substance abuse, their AA and NA meetings, if they can get there on foot in a reasonable time, I mean, how great is that to make your life easier?
Right. And it's just right in their backyard.
It completely is. Yeah. And then they can see that there is a different support network there. Right. Whereas they kind of only looked, under the bushes and behind the trash can. Yeah. I'm like, no, let's put your head up and like really see what this community has for you, what the neighborhood has in putting that investment there. So that's something that's important for me. So we help the neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that by doing some yard work and
we do yard work
things.
if they need some little repairs done.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can really see that they're struggling and we have some abundance or we have leftover food and we just take it right over there to them. And they're super grateful and it's creating a different mindset for them. Oh, I used to see him doing this and that, but now this person is making these active steps to change their lifestyle. And so it really kind of creates a safety net for them as well.
Sure.
So it feels
and that you're being good neighbors in what you're doing there.
Yes.
I talked with Food Pantry in one of our podcasts, and they talking about the ministry of just serving the community in many different ways. But one of the greatest things they love is when Hope Street men come and help. And they've come really close to a lot of the men. In fact, one of them last year, I think a year and a half ago, Pastor Paul had an opportunity to baptize because he was connected and around that conversation enough. And he felt called to do that. And that's just really neat. And I've gotten to know, of course, a lot of the men through coming here and different things that we've done. But it's pretty special. And I know for our food pantry to connect with those men.
Well, I will say we have a lot of volunteer opportunities.
Yeah.
If you're not working, if you're not going to sit around the house. You're going to be impactful. It's good for that individual, but it's also good to give back to the community who is supporting us. Yeah. And I will tell you, there's always, I don't want to say there's not a fight about it, but it's always like, okay, who wants to do food pantry on Tuesday night? And then, you have 8 people raise their hand. I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, I've been going every week and those people know me.
Right, they know my name.
and it feels so good for them to be connected and welcomed at a church, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because then it's like, well, people haven't trusted me to be inside or they haven't, really looked at me as a person. Yeah. And they do. They feel special. They feel connected. And, I'm like, okay, don't think, that's going to be your new grandma and they're going to knit you a scarf. And they're like, that's fine. I want And I said, and so then no, I think we should do something for them. I said, that would be great.
That's great.
And so they love coming here. And I think I think that's really telling too about the relationships that have developed that don't include me so that it is creating that support system for them.
Yeah, that's great. And I know, obviously, not just us, other churches involved, other people and volunteers and organizations. But if you want to expound on any of that, just ways that can be helpful to Hope Street. I mean, whether it's financially or giving food, product, any of that stuff. What are ways to help out?
So one of the things for, of course, financially, right? Because we're supported by the community.
Absolutely.
That's always a great option. You can go on our website. You can set it up for a monthly donation or a one-time donation. We have different opportunities we might do like a little fundraiser online. But other ways that are really impactful is really just coming and developing relationships with people and showing the men, like this is us accepting you and we want to be a part of that. Yeah. And I know one of the questions a lot of individuals ask, especially females, they ask about the safety.
Sure.
And so for us volunteers, I call everybody volunteers if they're going to come, and even if it's to play pool with the guys or watch a movie or just hang out, I say to them, you know what? These individuals are people that they would be the one to jump in front of the bus for me. If I was hurt on the sidewalk, they're going to be the ones that stop and they're going to get the help. Other people are, on the street are going to keep driving by. These guys generally come from a place where they want to have compassion for others. Yeah. And so when they're not drinking, when they're not under the influence of drugs, they are great, fabulous people who are broken and hurt, have trauma, and they just want to be loved and accepted too.
And they're great men.
They totally
Every
are.
time I stop by there, I mean, I know sometimes I'll pop in if I'm around that side of town and maybe you're not there, I'll still hang out with them and they like to show me their fish because that's right. Tony's got his fish.
Yeah.
And different. But speaking of the pool table, you guys tore that up. Are you putting it back together?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to get like the other supplies. It was going to be a surprise for me, but they didn't realize not all the supplies were there. So between today and tomorrow, so I think they're having maybe some pool playing withdrawal right now.
Oh, there you go.
So I think the motivation's pretty high right now.
Exactly. So the surprise was the pool table being detached.
For sure. But they can grill. People have their family over. I have one gentleman, his significant other, she comes over 2 or 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. He makes breakfast for her. They eat together. Yeah. He just knows that they can't live together now yet until he gets healthier and they can work on their marriage. But it's an opportunity for them to sort of start and have those meals and spend that time together. And so we have guys from 18 up to, I think our oldest individual right now is 67.
Okay. Yep.
And so we have a whole range of individuals there that they all have a similar story, not the same, but very similar. Mm-hmm. And they just want to do better for themselves, whether it's, I want to go back to being, the husband that I once was, or I want to learn how to be a dad. Yep. And they didn't have that experience growing up. They're not even sure. And so we can connect them with all those resources to be able to do that.
I feel like whenever I've kind of heard a story of one, especially who has family, I mean, that's the biggest heart issue that they're dealing with and working through is just missing their family, wanting to be better for themselves, but because they have family and they're thinking of everybody in their circle there. Now, you've had several success stories, and so tell me about some of those. And actually, I think one is more recent and a new hire that you've gone through.
So Chris, he was our first individual that came to Hope Street.
That is the same Chris.
It is the same Chris.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, Chris has actually come here and spoken. Like he spoke in front of the church. He loved to come to the food pantry. And so actually he's 5 years clean and sober in June.
Awesome.
Longest time ever in his life. Mm-hmm. And he is able to reconnect with his family. He's got grandkids and, he's just really excited. But there was an opportunity to hire an additional person that could, I wanted a male, and he applied for the position. So Chris not only went through the Hope Street program, and he did that for probably 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And he is doing so wonderful. He's got his license and he's got a vehicle. I gotta stop to see him. It's
been a while since I've seen him.
Mm-hmm. So he is now a case manager for me. He's doing a great job.
He started already? He
started on Monday.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of throwing him to the wolves. I'm like, it's on the job learning, buddy.
Yeah, you're in it now.
He's like, it's a little different being on this side.
I'm sure
it totally is. Yeah. But he, yesterday he was like, can I take the guys to Morningside Lutheran? I said, absolutely. So he really loved coming here and talking to some of the ladies and, hey, this is my phone number. I'm the contact person now.
There you go. Cool.
And so, and I think it is inspiring for some of the other guys to really look at,
imagine,
this is,
they're going to want jobs there too. Before
I know,
openings.
Right? Sarah, if I get a driver's license, what can I do? And I'm like, well, let's get through some other things first and we'll revisit that. Yeah. Right. But I think that's exciting when they're motivated, an individual's motivated to, I want to do better, and they can see I don't have to always have, this job I completely dislike. I can go to school. And if I want to be a substance abuse counselor, I can. If I want to be able to give back to the community, these are the things I can do. And I think it gives a lot of the men purpose. Yeah,
that's great. And that Chris can speak into those hard times too, because he, I'm sure, has had his moments of trying to get sober and clean and on the right track, and finally got through to that and to the point he's at now.
Well, I think sometimes people feel like, okay, I finally made it. Like there's an end to this, I'm in recovery, and they reach an end. Mm-hmm. They don't. Because once you get, you're a year clean and sober, there's completely different challenges that they've never encountered because they haven't ever been clean and sober for a year. And so those challenges just continue. And, one of the things about Chris is that he has continued to stay involved with Hope Street. And one of our projects that we're working on is that I'm hoping right now, at least for one time a month, I'm going to have to maybe get some people to help me volunteer to help me with this. But I would like to sort of have like an alumni dinner for people who have been successful and, reconnect. They see each other at meetings, but it's a really different when you have a special experience. And I do have quite a few of those individuals that they're still popping in and out of my life, and I talk to them and they're texting me and I still help them, with their documentation, or if they are not quite sure what the next step should be, I'm still kind of that person for them. And so I think being able to connect them together and really give them an opportunity to be like, okay, this is pretty great, and have another support system for them. I think that'll be good.
That's great. So since 2019, putting you on the spot, if you don't know the number off the top of your head, how many men have come through Hope Street?
Oh, how many men have come through?
Yeah.
I know that it's probably closer to about 250.
Okay. Wow. It's pretty significant.
It is pretty significant. And we have had 77 men who have left successfully.
Wow.
And it's really hard to measure because we also have people who maybe they just decided, I don't want to be here anymore. And they have left, but they've also remained clean and sober.
They've taken the life habits.
Absolutely.
And that new cycle that they've gone through. Yeah, right.
And so the number's actually higher. But for me, just to be able to
calculable one.
Right. To keep those statistics. But there are a lot of individuals who they're still doing really great, and they're working places that they never thought they could ever achieve. They have their own work trucks. They have, vehicles that they can travel. We have an individual right now. He's working on getting his license back. He's been hired full-time at Goodwill as a maintenance person, and they want him to travel. Comes to church here every Sunday.
Yep.
But he has worked his butt off to get those things. And, it's 2 years coming up, and I'm very excited and happy for him. And, when he just never thought that was possible, and he didn't think he deserved it. And so I think maintaining those relationships and continue to support even afterwards. So like when we talk about people building relationships with gentlemen, if I can have volunteers come and just hang out, or, whether we're going to grill hamburgers together, so that if you develop relationships with some of these individuals and they do move on successfully, you still part of that support system,
right?
And so those are things that have been really important for those individuals.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're only scratching the surface of Hope Street.
Oh, for sure.
And so I hope that this is just encouraging to those watching today and to learn more about Hope Street and get involved. And Sarah, it's been great to have you on. I appreciate it, and in great partnership.
Yeah, this has been fabulous. So if anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to stop by Hope Street. We give tours all the time, or they can call me on my cell phone, 560-2253.
You heard it there. Very good. We'll plug all that in the link too. So,
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for listening today to our Faith, Relationship, and Community podcast. For more episodes, check out our website, morningsidelutheran.com, or on our social media platforms. We appreciate you joining. God bless.